All right, so I haven't done a bad movie review in a while. I think the last one was Captain Marvel. This is going to be on A Wrinkle in Time from 2018, directed by Ava DuVernay. The reason why I'm doing it is because the last one I did, I'm pretty sure the last one I did was on Captain Marvel. Obviously, there was controversy around that movie, and Brie Larson mentioned it in one of her little statements that she made on stage that people got mad about. This is a horrible movie to use for that statement because of just how bad this movie was. Nobody liked this movie, regardless of demographics. Uh, it's terrible. I remember being in the theater and watching families walk out, not even that far into the movie. So we have the main character in this, Meg, played by Storm Reed, and her younger adopted brother, Charles Wallace, played by Derek McCabe. We'll definitely talk more about Charles Wallace in this movie. But they're going to school, and Meg is being bullied by these girls, especially one in particular. She turns out to be her neighbor, and they're making fun of her because her dad is missing. So their dad, played by Chris Pine, I think his name was Alex Murray. He was a scientist. Both their parents are scientists, and the father disappeared 4 years ago. They don't know where he's at. So she's getting bullied for that, and even the teachers are kind of like talking shit about their family and things like that. It's real bizarre.
Absolutely brilliant.
But odd, so odd.
I guess I would be too if my dad ran away, huh?
Shame on you for talking like that.
Oh, my dear, I'm sorry.
And I'm not odd, you are, because you think making up mean stories about people makes you feel better about yourselves. Well, it doesn't, does it?
It's a real cringy scene with Charles Wallace defending Meg. She's got more potential in one pinky than you have in your whole body. It's not good. So their dad is missing because he tessered, I guess. We'll talk about it a little bit later, but he's able to tesser, and so that's why he's gone. And Charles Wallace seems to be kind of like a genius and knows about things already. He already knows the three interdimensional warriors, whatever they're going to meet, which is Reese Witherspoon's character, Mrs. Whatsit, Mindy Kaling's character, Mrs. Who, and then you got Oprah, which is Mrs. Witch. And they're going to help them by testering them to, this other area, basically following their father's footsteps to try to find him. So they end up doing that. Charles Wallace, Meg, and this boy that clearly likes her. And they are in this field, and they end up talking to some flowers, trying to figure out where he's at. They can't get to him because he's on Camazotz, I believe that's what it's called, which is where the It lives, who seems to have power over darkness, just in general, but can affect people using the darkness in their hearts and things like that. So they have to actually go there and find their father. So then it's just a bunch of kind of random things happening while they're trying to do that. So positives, I got kind of a few. It's mainly just with one scene. I think the cinematography at points looks good, especially in this scene, which is Meg finally meeting up with their father, and she does some kind of equation or something to get up to him on some invisible stairs. I didn't understand that, and it is just letting her do that while he's controlling Charles Wallace. All right, whatever. But when she reunites with her dad, I like the colors of it. I like the way the shots are set up when she's going towards him, when she finally finds him. And Chris Pine gives the best performance in this. Most of the acting isn't good, but he's good in it. And that's the one emotional scene in this where it actually worked. I actually felt something from it, because this movie is sappy as fuck. It is so cheesy with these flashbacks with Chris Pine, like, I love you and things like that. Super sappy with all that other stuff. So at least in that scene, I thought it was effective emotionally. All right, let's get into it. So this is a mess. It's a random mess. The beginning part of it, like I said, with like the teachers kind of talking about the family and things like that, it just kind of feels off. And I guess you can kind of explain that with what happens at the end. But it's bad. Like the acting is bad. The direction is bad. Charles Wallace is bad. We'll talk more about him later. I have a whole segment of this for Charles Wallace. But it starts off with the beginning. She's getting bullied because her dad is missing. Bullied in a way that just doesn't really make much sense. But she's a delinquent in that, I guess after her father left, her grades started to slip, and she gets into it with the bully. She throws a ball in her face, which she was bullying her, so it's a little bit more sympathetic there. They have this whole arc with Meg, where she doesn't believe in herself, and she needs to like find her inner strength. She's always talking down on herself, and they don't develop that in the beginning of the movie. It seemed like she was just a delinquent because her father was missing. She doesn't blame herself for her father missing or anything like that. She doesn't know where he went and what happened. They keep having the movie stop so that she can be like, I'm ugly, or I'm not good at anything, or whatever. And for characters to hype her up, especially the boy that likes her that's just tagging along. I believe that's played by Levi Miller. I forgot what the character's name was. I'm not going to look it up right now. That character's really nothing. He's there just to compliment her, and that's it.
You have no idea how incredible you are. Do you?
You have the setup where they're not really developing the character arc for the main character, not really doing much. Charles Wallace is annoying. And then you just have Reese Witherspoon, Miss Whatsit. This is the point where people were walking out, I remember. So it's not even that far into the movie. I think it's maybe 12 minutes or so, maybe 15 minutes. When she first shows up and she stole a sheet or whatever, Charles Wallace already knows her. And she's just saying random stuff. Like, she's just saying, like, nonsense. I guess some of it is, like, exposition. She does know about the father, obviously, and where he went and all that. But that's it. And you're like, what's going on? This is just, it's weird for weird's sake. It doesn't really feel like there's any point to it, really. Then they meet Mindy Kaling. She's just in a house. Like, Charles Wallace just runs up and she's just in one of those houses. No explanation. I guess maybe does she live in the neighborhood? Does she actually live there? What's up with that house? She's got her books everywhere because she has this thing where she she only speaks in quotes. It's probably one of the only things that is explained, and even the explanation is just kind of nothing.
The wound is the place where the light enters you. Rumi. Persian.
She's evolved past language, so now she only speaks in quotes. I think she quoted Gandhi at one point, things like that, but then it starts to get a little weird because she's like quoting Chris Tucker and things like that. It's like, I guess that was supposed to be funny, I guess.
Dang. Tucker, American.
How you at?
Oh, that's cool.
Damn!
You know, they meet Oprah's character, who's just kind of tall. I believe they just met her in the backyard when they go to test her. But that's it. You know, those three, they just kind of say weird random things or give exposition, and that's about it. There's no real explanation as to what they are and what they do. They're not human because they say that they make comments about her being human and Charles Wallace and that. That's it. Reese Witherspoon, her character, Miss Whatsit, she has a crush on Zach Galifianakis' character. I think his name was Happy Medium. And he helps them find the father at one point. But and she like kind of badmouths Meg for some reason. I guess that's like negative reinforcement. It doesn't matter. There's not that much explanation for these characters. There's not much explanation for almost any of this. There's an explanation. I remember watching the movie. There's an explanation that they touch on in the trailer, but there's no explanation really in the movie. The closest thing you get to an explanation is when you get the flashback of Chris Pine explaining things to, I guess, whatever scientific board this is. But I guess maybe he didn't have anything concrete enough to show them because they just kind of, disregard what he says and things. He's like, they're not ready. They're not ready. These flashbacks are not great.
Dimensions outside of the limitations of space and time. Imagine that. Imagine. Rather than enduring the oppressive rules of time and space, we could wrinkle it. 91 billion light years traveled like that.
It's the setup at the beginning, which isn't that great. And then you have them going to that field when they test her, which is barely explained, which just looks like somebody's like stock desktop background. They talk to some damn flowers. Reese Witherspoon just changes into some kind of giant green monster, like a plant-based monster or something, so that she could fly them to follow the flowers where they're trying to lead them to the dad. And obviously they can't get to him because he's in Camazotz or whatever. So they don't explain that. Is she a shapeshifter? Is this her true form? And that's just the form she goes to talk to them in. Are the other ones shapeshifters? Can they also shapeshift into monsters, or they don't? And then they're flying, and it looks so bad. The effects in this movie look really bad. The backgrounds, they don't look right in front of in the areas that they're in. Right after that point, they're in this place where they go to Camazotz to find the dad, and immediately it turns into like a forest, and things are flying around and wind and everything. That's the only real point that it seems like it's trying to kill them, because there's no tension really or stakes at all in this. They try to keep it as light as possible, I guess, for kids. That's the only real time. Other than that, is to manipulate them, because they go from that to the random street of kids bouncing balls, and one of the moms like, "Hey, come in and eat." And you're thinking, okay, there's something wrong with the food maybe, but they're able to resist that. Then they're randomly on a beach with Michael Pena, and he gives them food, and they eat the food. And Charles Wallace, because he's special in some way that still hasn't been explained, well, never is explained really. They eat the food, and Charles Wallace can tell that it's just sand, but the food doesn't do anything to them. It's like, well, what's the point? Why do you keep trying to give them food? It's like, I don't know. And then Michael Pena takes Charles Wallace's hand, and then he somehow is able to infect him with the it. Yeah, I guess we can talk about Charles Wallace now. So Charles Wallace, first of all, and I guess maybe this is a smaller thing, they call him Charles Wallace every time they say his name. Charles Wallace, Charles Wallace, Charles Wallace, Charles Wallace. That got on my nerves in the movie theater when I first saw this. At some point, somebody would shorten it and just call him Charles, right? You call him Meg. I'm sure it's probably short for Megan or something like that. Why is everybody calling him Charles Wallace over and over again? I guess maybe he has like a name where like that together is his first name. It's not his first name and his middle name. I guess maybe that's just all one name, but you would still call him Charles for short. It's just weird hearing that full thing over and over and over again whenever they talk to him.
Charles Wallace, whatever she is, whatever that is, whatever all this is, I don't like it.
Charles Wallace!
Charles Wallace!
Charles Wallace!
Charles Wallace!
The kid is annoying. He's that precocious, overly precocious kid that is just there to be, like, I guess as adorable as possible. Like every line, everything he does is supposed to be seen as, I guess, adorable. Even when he's the villain, it's supposed to be like, oh, this little cute little kid is saying this crazy stuff and is bashing his sister. But it just comes off as bad. Especially if you were going to make this kid the villain. Like you were going to have him be controlled and essentially be the villain. The villain is controlling him. It is controlling him even towards the end, like when Meg defeats him. We'll talk about that in a second. I mean, the kid is just awkward with his dialogue, and it really does just feel like some kid just kind of stumbled on set.
Sit. I can take it from here.
No doubt about that, little guy.
Would you like to meet it? That happy sadist.
It just doesn't feel right. The whole time I'm thinking, okay, if you were gonna do all this with this kid, and it was gonna be child acting, you should have at least casted a better child actor. There's gotta be, there's definitely better child actors out there that could have done something like this. It's just, I kind of felt bad for the kid. I mean, it's really bad. And I'm assuming this is probably his first role or one of his first roles. It's not good, man. It's really not good. But he becomes the villain, and he's, talking to Meg, whatever. Meg has her confidence now because of something. I guess because she talked to her dad. I don't know. The dad was going to leave, right? I guess he likes leaving. He was just going to leave the kid when he's taken over by evil. He's like, look, we can't do anything about this, Meg. Let's get out of here. But they get to they get to the ending where, because they've kind of talked about the test, or like I said, they haven't really explained it. But there is that eureka moment in the flashback where the dad, with Chris Pine, where he figures out how to test her with his equipment or whatever, even though I thought you were supposed to be able to test it with your mind. So what is he using equipment for? I guess you have to find the right frequency. How do you find the right frequency as a person, like in your mind? I don't know. Seems like finding the right frequency would mean that you would have to have some kind of device to find it, right? Like, how would you do it with your mind then? Anyway, he has that eureka moment in that flashback, and it's because the secret to finding the frequency this whole time was love. That's already real cheesy, but the way that you defeat the villain, the way that you defeat the darkness, is also love. It's just like, oh man, you're gonna puke, man. It really just comes down to Meg standing up against the it that's in Charles Wallace's body, and she just telling him how much she loves him. Oh my god, it all boils down to you telling your younger adopted brother how much you love him. It's like, it's because you love me, Charles Wallace. You remember, it's the same reason why you wake up during a storm and make me warm milk, because you know I'll come downstairs because I can't sleep during the storm. It's just, it's really, really cheesy stuff, man. It's cringe. It's like, really, it all boils to barely anything has happened, but some random moments that you just came up with, it seems like. Now all of it is going to come down to, I love you, Charles Wallace, and that's it. It's just so, it's so sappy. It's so cheesy, man. It's really, it's cringe. But they defeat the it, and then the it, I guess, was the darkness of all the world. So, you know, the bully from the bully neighbor, she like waves at her and everything. Everything seems cool. The kid in here, what's it called? Levi Miller's character, Calvin, the love interest in this, kind of, because they're not together in any way by the end. But I guess because they're so young, they didn't have them kiss or anything. But he was having some issues with his dad. That's how they pretend like that character has anything to do but just have a crush on Meg and you know, kind of give her motivation to keep going. He had this whole thing with his dad, that his dad was mean to him. He's like, you know what, I'm going to stand up to my dad now. I was like, well, your dad probably isn't even mean to you anymore, because all the darkness of the world is gone because she told her little brother that she loved him. It's just, man, it's crazy. Is there world peace now? With me being at home, I get to kind of, and it's on Disney Plus, I get to kind of go back and be like, okay, what did that mean? Wait, what was that line? I had the subtitles on. I was like, okay, what's going on? And at the end of the day, it's just, a lot of this is just kind of not explained, or the explanation is just lame. But it's just, yeah, it doesn't help it all that much. It's just, this is a bad movie. It's horrible. So I'm going to give it complete shit. I don't know if I had a rating scale back when this came out, but I'm pretty sure that's what it would have gotten. I think it was number 2, I think, on my worst list that year. And yeah, other than understanding it a little bit more, it's still terrible. But anyway, yeah, that's A Wrinkle in Time, and we're done.